Let me ask you something. How many games a year do you play that you think are truly special? Not just good, not just great, but something beyond that. A game that you think about for days, weeks, months, or even years after you've finished it. I believe I found that kind of game, and it's Nine Souls. Nine Souls is a 2.5D Tau-punk side-scrolling Metroidvania with strong Sekiro vibes. It was developed and published by Red Candle Games and released for Windows and Mac on May 29, 2024. Yeah, it's been over 4 months, but I'm really happy to tell you that a version for Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox is slated to arrive November 26. So even though this review is coming months after the original release, I think it's timely, because if you can't play this on Mac or PC, you have to make some time around Thanksgiving to play it on your favorite console. Seriously, it's really good. You play as Yi, this adorable, fox-like badass who's out for revenge against his fellow souls, tyrants who rule a forsaken land. Yi was killed, I think, by his mentor, and centuries later is awakened by the bestest human kid in the whole game called Shan. The world they live in is effed up and brutal, especially toward humans, with this ritual where humans are sacrificed, ostensibly to please the souls. Shan's head was on the literal chopping block, and Yi starts his journey meting out revenge by saving him. And with that being done, you're off. The story in this game is complex, yet masterfully told. You get it in lots of ways, in the right doses. It's told through cutscenes, flashbacks, artifacts, and manga-style sections that make you feel like you're reading a graphic novel. It never stops surprising you, and getting the whole story, the true ending, is worth the trouble. One thing I really loved was the relationship between Yi and Shan. Yi is icy to him at first, but that doesn't seem to faze the boy. Over time, they develop a heartwarming father-son dynamic that neither was supposed to have, and it adds so much emotional depth. Another relationship that really got me was between Yi and his little sister, Heng. Flashbacks showing their bond as kids will make you feel the feelings. She adores him so much, and is just smitten listening to him talk about his beliefs and inventions and whatnot. It's these gems of relationship storytelling that make the narrative really compelling. But every gamer knows a great story will only take a game so far. The meat of Nine Souls is in its gameplay, in particular its combat. The combat system is heavily reliant on parrying mechanics. And let me be clear, if you don't master parrying, you won't have a good time. The fine print here is that you can play on story mode and not worry too much about that. You have different kinds of parries that you have to use in specific situations, like the unbound counter, where you build up and release a parry at just the right moment to stun the enemy and do some real damage. And when you nail that parry, it sounds so good. It's got that Lost Crown type of parry sound and feel that is so satisfying. Now the game is hard. Parrying is important, and the timing can be difficult to nail down. In this aspect, the game is somewhat forgiving. If you parry imperfectly, you take internal damage. What this means is your health bar will decrease temporarily, and with time it will refill, as long as you don't take damage from an enemy attack during the refill. Closely entwined with parrying is the game's talisman system. Parrying, both perfectly and imperfectly, builds up your chi, which lets you unleash powerful talisman attacks. These are where you do your real damage, blowing basic enemies apart and dealing huge hits to bosses. And speaking of bosses, the fights are brutal and unique, not at all gimmicky. And the last boss is hands down the hardest in the game. Maybe the hardest I've come across in recent Metroidvanias. But it's kind of awesome that the last boss is the hardest, because honestly, isn't that the way it should be? There are customization options with jades which act like rings or charms in other games. You use computing units to equip jades, which let you create your own kind of build for Yi. There's the Azure Bow for range attacks, and it's pretty OP. It's super helpful for taking out multiple enemies at once. You can upgrade to have different effects like homing or electric damage. and you increase your number of arrows similarly. They reset at checkpoints. Upgrading the bow should be a priority, because it gives you an advantage in situations where progression would seem impossible without it. The level design is pretty great. The difficulty ramps up quickly, but the layout is intuitive. If you ever feel lost, NPCs will usually guide you to your next objective. Platforming is solid too. This isn't a platform-heavy Metroidvania by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a series of platforming events you have to complete prior to an endgame boss that is challenging without being too frustrating, thanks to smartly placed checkpoints. Fast travel exists, but it's not fully developed until about mid-game. You gotta earn it. I wasn't too bothered by that, though I am of the general opinion that fast travel in games like this, especially Metroidvanias, should be robust and available early on. I like the map system well enough. As you explore, you find robots that sell map chips. If you don't have the Gen, the game's currency, you can take it by force. Kinda mean to do though. But if you want all the achievements, you have to take at least one by force, and you also have to do a playthrough where you pay for all of them, so save files will come in handy here. Exploration also comes with a few puzzles, but not too many. And there are a bunch of mini-bosses you can tackle. The rewards for beating them are usually worth the hassle, even though sometimes they can be hard as hell. There's what's called a mystic nymph, which is this kind of bird, and you can use it to see what you're up against a little farther ahead, and you can also use it to hack into systems that open up areas that would otherwise be impassable. And speaking of difficulty, you lose your gen when you die. You get a shot to get it back, but if you die before doing so, that money's lost forever. Oof, I hate respect that kind of system. Throughout the game, you'll gain abilities by completing story events. You get transported to this cool nether realm where a mentor figure teaches you. There's often a brief tutorial here as well, which is a nice touch that's really respectful to the player. You also upgrade by means of a skill tree. It's very simple, very standard video game fare. You upgrade and unlock areas of the skill tree using skill points, which you get by defeating enemies. Simple but effective. I like the sound design in this game a lot. I've already mentioned the sound effects for parrying, but there are others that I enjoyed as well. The music is beautiful, though I gotta admit some of the tracks were grating after listening to them a million times while trying to defeat bosses. That's probably a skill issue on my part though, so I'm not gonna fault the game for that. I love the art design in this game. I don't exactly know how to describe it. A bit anime, I guess, and cyberpunk for sure. The biomes were bleak, but this world is brutal, so it fits. The characters look amazing, and those manga scenes I mentioned earlier, just icing on the cake. Replay value is strong in this game. If you don't use save files, you'll have to do 2 playthroughs to get all the achievements. You can't get platinum on story mode, which might be irksome to some people. It's $30 on Steam at the time of this review, which is more than fair, I think. And for my rating, there's really nothing about this game that I don't like. It ticks all the boxes, and it has that je ne sais quoi that's necessary for a good game to be great. Any criticism is just a matter of personal taste, not flaws. 9 Souls earns a Maestro Mark of 10 out of 10, which means I think you'll love it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you like what I do here, please consider subscribing. It's so helpful, you don't even know. Take care, and we'll see you for the next one.